I'm sure you have heard of this phrase, the map is not the territory. What it really means is the map of reality is not reality. Even the best maps are imperfect. That's because they are reductions of what they represent. Hi friends, I am Kamlesh Bonomaully, business consultant, soft skill trainer, and today I will be talking about the map is not the territory.
The map of reality is not reality. Even the best maps are imperfect. That's because they are reductions of what they represent. If a map were to represent the territory with perfect fidelity, it would no longer be a reduction and thus would no longer be useful to us. A map can also be a snapshot of a point in time, representing something that no longer exists. It's important to keep in mind as we think through problems and make better decisions. We use maps every day. They help us navigate from one city to another. They help us reduce complexity to simplicity. Think of the financial statements for a company, which are meant to distill the complexity of thousands of transactions into something simpler, or a policy document, an office procedure, a manual on parenting a 2-year-old, or your performance review. All are models or maps that simplify some complex territory in order to guide you through it. Just because maps and models are flawed is not an excuse to ignore them. Maps are useful to the extent they are explanatory and predictive. Now we'll look at the key elements of a map. In 1931, the mathematician Alfred Korzybski presented a paper on mathematical semantics in New Orleans, Louisiana. Looking at it today, most of the paper reads like a complex technical argument on the relationship of mathematics to human language and of both to physical reality. However, with this paper, Korzybski introduced and popularized the concept that the map is not the territory. In other words, the description of the thing is not the thing itself. The model is not reality. The abstraction is not the abstracted. The key points here, a map may have a structure similar or dissimilar to the structure of the territory. The London Underground map is super useful to travelers, as you all know. The train drivers don't use it at all. Maps describe a territory in a useful way, but with a specific purpose. They cannot be everything to everyone. Two similar structures have similar logical characteristics. If a correct map shows, as an example, Dresden as between Paris and Warsaw, a similar relation is found in the actual territory. If you have a map showing where Dresden is, you should be able to use it to get there. A map is not the actual territory. The London Underground map does not convey what it's like to be standing in Covent Garden station as an example. Nor would you use it to navigate out of the station. An ideal map would contain the map of the map, the map of the map of the map, etc. endlessly. We may call this characteristic self-reflexiveness. Imagine using an overly complicated guide to Paris on a trip to France, and then having to purchase another book that was a guide to the guide of Paris, and so on. Ideally, you would never have any issues, but eventually the level of detail would be overwhelming. The truth is, the only way we can navigate the complexity of reality is through some sort of abstraction. When we read the news, we are consuming abstractions created by other people. The authors consumed vast amounts of information, reflected upon it, and drew some abstractions and conclusions that they share with us. But something is lost in the process. We can lose the specific and relevant details that were distilled into an abstraction. And because we often consume these abstractions as gospel without having done the hard mental work ourselves, it's tricky to see when the map no longer agrees with the territory. We inadvertently forget that the map is not reality. We need maps and models as guides, but frequently we don't remember that our maps and models are abstractions, and thus we fail to understand their limits. We forget there is a territory that exists separately from the map. This territory contains details the map doesn't describe. We run into problems when our knowledge becomes of the map rather than the actual underlying territory it describes. When we mistake the map for reality, we start to think we have all the answers. We create static rules or policies that deal with the map but forget that we exist in a constantly changing world. When we close off or ignore feedback loops, we don't see the terrain has changed and we dramatically reduce our ability to adapt to a changing environment. Reality is messy and complicated, so our tendency to simplify it is understandable. However, if the aim becomes simplification rather than understanding, we start to make bad decisions. We can't use maps as dogma. Maps and models are not meant to live forever as static references. The world is dynamic. As territories change, our tools to navigate them must be flexible to handle a wide variety of situations or adapt to the changing times. If the value of a map or model is related to its ability to predict or explain, then it needs to represent reality. If reality has changed, the map must change. Take Newtonian physics as an example. For hundreds of years, it served as an extremely useful model for understanding the workings of our world, from gravity to celestial motion. Newtonian physics was a wide ranging map. Then in 1905, Albert Einstein, with his theory of special relativity, changed our understanding of the universe in a huge way. He replaced the understanding handed down by Isaac Newton hundreds of years earlier. He created a new map. Newtonian physics is still a very useful model. One can use it very reliably to predict the movement of objects large and small, with some limitations as pointed out by Einstein. And on the flip side, Einstein physics are still not totally complete. With every year that goes by, physicists become increasingly frustrated with their inability to tie it into small scale quantum physics. Another map may yet come. But what physicists do so well, and most of us do so poorly, is that they carefully delimit what Newtonian and Einsteinian physics are able to explain. They know down to many decimal places where those maps are useful guides to reality and where they aren't. And when they hit uncharted territory like quantum mechanics, they ignore it carefully instead of assuming the maps they have can explain it all. Now, maps can't show everything. Some of the biggest map territory problems are the risk of the territory that are not shown on the map, as you all know. When we are following the map without looking around, we trip right over them. Any user of a map or model must realize that we do not understand a model, map, or reduction unless we understand and respect its limitations. If we don't understand what the map does and doesn't tell us, it can be useless or even dangerous. I thank you for your attention, guys. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe below and also like the video if you like it. And I will see you in another one. Thank you.